Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Most of you are going to be muted coming in. Go ahead, feel free to unmute yourself unless you got a lot of distraction happening in the background. So I want you guys to be able to chime in and ask questions later or
What's up, Sheree?
what's going on. All right. Let's see. I'll give everybody a couple more minutes to hop in here. All right, so I did have a request early this morning to address the CTBids issues last night, and I'm here to tell all of you I really just don't even know what's going on. I haven't been up long enough, and there wasn't enough chatter happening in our tech team chat last night to really even explain what's going on. The only owner that I had that even was closing the sale last night was Brandon, and he seemed to have no issues. So I don't have any answers for you guys yet. I'm so sorry. But hopefully in the next couple of hours, I can at least send something out so you guys can get an update. For those of you who had some sales closing last night.
Sheree, it almost gave me a heart attack.
Yeah, Brandon. Oh my God, you guys, Brandon had a sale that closed for 40 grand last night. When you guys hear me say why and how I love hoarder houses, by golly, that's why. Brandon,
Yeah, but what I saw, one of the things that was happening that was weird was as the sale was closing, when the items closed and I refreshed the screen, it wouldn't drop off, which that's fine, but that's weird. That's new. But the other thing it was doing is I would scroll down and see a lot, um, and then I'd scroll a little bit further and see the same lot. And it freaked me out because I thought I had duplicated the lots. It's like, everything was going so fast and I saw the first one and I'm like, oh my goodness. So then I went back in and checked SKUs and they were the same and I couldn't figure out why it was showing the same lot closed. And then, 12 items down, I'd see that same lot again, but it was the same SKU. There was no issues, but just panicked for a little bit.
yeah. Yeah, so I'm not sure what's going on. He didn't have any problems except for, just what he was just mentioning.
We
So
had
I
tons
haven't
of
heard.
problems, Sheree.
Was that Liz? Was that you that just popped
Yep,
in? Yeah, Liz was
yep.
the one that made that request this morning. What were you saying?
Uh, our bidders were seeing 000 after they bid on the final things. Things were closing while people were actively still trying to bid on them, and they just shut down and they weren't allowed to continue to fight over the items. And finally, then people were not getting invoiced. We couldn't collect the money last night and people weren't being charged.
Oh no. Yeah, I didn't even know the extent of all that. Brandon, were you able to close your payments out?
Yes, I didn't have any of those same issues at all. It went through, all that stuff was normal for me.
Oh no. Okay. Well, Liz, I'll try to hop on after this to see if I can get you some answers from some of the tech people, because I just had a little screenshot from Sherry and Joe saying, they're getting messages that something's happening on CTBids, but that was the extent of it. Nobody from the tech team chimed in on that chat last night, so I'm in the dark, just like you guys, kind of. Just because I'm 2 hours behind them.
Yeah, it's all working now, but it was just last night was, panicking, just like Brandon. I was just panicked because it was like, oh my
Yeah,
God, what's going on?
yeah,
And yeah, it's okay.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you. Tech is like one of those weird things, right? It's like either working and it's working fine, or it's like it's not and it's got hiccups, and you're like, what is happening? I'm gonna shoot myself because I can't figure it out. All right. So today we're gonna talk about, reporting sales, invoicing clients, and kind of just using this Excel spreadsheet to help you guys do some monthly tracking on your per project basis, your whole entire project summary, um, as well as, streamlining reporting for your monthly reports. And then tracking some of your employees' activity. Okay. I know this part, when I get to that, is going to be very aggressive, and a lot of you guys aren't going to be ready to start aggressively measuring your staff's productivity and efficiencies, but it's good for you to start seeing it, whether you share it with them or not. So you can see where your staff is. You can see from sale to sale if they're progressively getting better. If they're not, then you know who you need to apply that feedback to. You'll be able to see which employees are really killing it for you, right? Like who's going to be the stars on your team, who's going to be that trainer that stands out. These numbers are going to kind of start to show you that, whether you're really sharing them with your team right now this early on or you're not. I will say by month 6 to the end of your first year, if you still have like some of that same consistent staff that's been with you since kind of the beginning or in the middle somewhere, at that point you do want to start aggressively measuring them and giving them that feedback and having some real tough conversations with them, because this part of the business right here, guys, the liquidation side, when you're doing auctions and in-persons, if you're dabbling that way, it really all comes down to your staff, okay? Like getting them in, getting them out as efficient as possible, being as productive as possible. That's really the only way you guys can start to play with your pricing and step away from the accelerator and come just a little bit into your market and how your market's responding to the pricing, where you guys feel a little bit comfortable. You don't feel like these quotes are so extremely high because you're having to pay for all the labor hours that are going into the projects right now. That's why these 10-year owners can get away with pricing per lot, or just kind of ballpark pricing the setup costs and the labor, because they know and understand what their team's productivity levels are and efficiencies levels and how they're executing their projects. Okay. So we'll kind of dabble in with that at the very, very last part of this. Does anybody have any questions right now? I know some of you guys have already been dabbling and playing with the spreadsheet. Some of you, it's going to feel very overwhelming right now, and I apologize, but just know that I'm here to help you walk through it anytime you have questions, and I'll hop on here and
Could you send this to us again?
yes, I will. I will. Actually, I'm going to resend it to all of you guys because I forget, somebody this week had told me one of my links wasn't working for the training demo. The password was wrong. So I've decided to create a YouTube channel to throw all of my videos up, because I've started losing some of my videos on Zoom, the recording. So now I have a YouTube channel for like all of the past Rise calls that I've done, plus some of these training videos. Any of the other training videos that I'm going to put together, I'm going to throw on that channel for you guys. So I'll give you guys that link as well. I did add the 2 training links in here as well that are going into that YouTube channel. So when you come into this spreadsheet, the very first page is your instructions page. It's going to give you those 2 demo videos to watch. It's about 2 hours totaling with these videos. Okay, guys? The spreadsheet is no joke. All right. You can thank Brandon and Kathleen that are on this call right now. They got me in here really, really working hard on this spreadsheet, making it a little bit more effective for you guys, and helping you guys streamline it. So it's complicated. It's going to feel very overwhelming right now, but I promise it does get easier to use. The more you play with it, the more you use it. Watch these videos. It does really break down the structure of it and kind of some of the nuances within the spreadsheet itself. Okay. So that's going to be your instructions page. Kind of just talks about the different color tabs, which tabs you need to be inputting into. Talks about your default section area, about putting all your like home info, choosing the state that you live in, what's your phone number, your name, your location, your website links, that sort of stuff. And then it just kind of talks about the tabs individually that you're going to be seeing throughout the rest of this. Okay. This right here is also going to be super important. Number 10 and 11. It talks about how the sheets are protected. So they're going to be locked. A lot of those sales are going to be locked. But if you are comfortable with Excel and you need to make an adjustment on it, I do give you the password here. And I walk you through how to unlock the spreadsheet if you need to. We're not going to get into that much of it, but I just wanted you to kind of know where to find that information if you guys wanted to play around with that. All right, so this is what your default section is going to look like. All right, so essentially you want to input all of your home information here. So it auto populates on all of your guys' client invoices moving forward. And then you're going to have a lot of these boxes where you're going to interact here. If it says select, it's going to be a box that you want to click on and, you know, pick whatever options that are there. This one is essentially asking you what state you live in. This is important for the CTBid metrics part because it's going to separate some of your shipping information and those shipping metrics so you guys can start seeing how much of your sale was shipped out of state versus in state. Those are numbers that you guys are going to want to be tracking and following. It's good value selling points for you when you guys are in your consultations, pitching against some of your competitors, especially those competitors that you all talk about that aren't charging setup fees, that are just charging the minimum costs. You know, if you guys were all on that Rise call in December with Lisa Malvia, where she talks about, like, I'm not going to compare apples to apples with you for my services to the competitor, but here's what I will give you is a list of questions to go ask the competitors, right? And so kind of with that mindset, knowing some of these metrics that are going to come out of this Excel sheet are going to be really great for you guys in a sense of selling your value in those consultations. So that's all going to be your company information. This part right here is going to be very similar to like when you're in the accelerator, right? When you're putting in all the employees' names, their actual pay rates, when you have to talk about your burdened percentage, that's what this loaded labor rate percentage column is. So essentially you're going to select whatever that labor burden charges, that SUTA, the FUTA, the FICA, all the uhs and the tus, right, that come out of that payroll expense that you guys have, whatever that's landing on, you want to select that percentage here. So I'll just land in the middle around 26. And then this other column is going to be where it's essentially deciding what your billable hourly rate is going to be. So it's going to be your direct labor cost percentage. So none of you right now really know solidly what that percentage is, but we tell you, you want to shoot somewhere between that 25 and 33% direct labor costs. So I'm going to just, again, land in the middle at 30%. So essentially what happens is if I were to put an employee's name here, and then I put my pay rate there, then it's going to do all the math for me, right? So it's going to essentially tell me what my billable hourly rate is for me and my rate at this 30% labor cost and a 25% burden cost. If I have multiple employees, then it's going to do the same thing. It's going to still calculate. And then this top right here, this row right here is going to be giving you your averages of everybody. So this 94 box is essentially going to be what your billable hourly rate is for the whole entire team. Okay. So that's just kind of doing this here. This part is playing into that employee metrics section. Okay, so that's why it's important to put it here. If you're wanting to track that part of the spreadsheet and to see what's happening, you're gonna need to put that information here in order for it to follow through on the other end. And then this column, these two columns right here are essentially just going to be your guys' fixed monthly expenses. You're tracking most of these things already, like in QuickBooks, probably, or your accountant's doing it. For those that aren't, you're gonna want to leverage this area because it will, at least at the end of the spreadsheet, at the end of your month, if you're putting your fixed expenses here, you will know what that net number is for yourself at the end of the month. But a lot of you that are leveraging QuickBooks, you're going to find that number kind of in the QuickBooks anyways, looking at your P&Ls. Any questions right now, guys, on just this like setup page or anything that this is feeding into onto the spreadsheet?
Hey, Sherry,
Mm-hmm.
Jennifer, quick
Hello.
question. Hello. If you have a job, say that you're not like I have a guy who is more my mover,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not using him for a particular job. I'm only using other people. How would you like take them out of this employee list, or is this for every?
This is going to be just moving forward. So this is like everything. So any employee that you have within your system, you'll want to have it here.
Okay, thanks.
If they're not on the project or not. This has nothing to do with project basis jobs. So
Okay.
it's not, I know I said it's like the accelerator in the beginning, but I just meant in a sense of how it's giving you and delivering your loaded rate, or yeah, your loaded rate and your actual billable hourly rate. That was the only comparison I was really going to within the accelerator. This is not going to be a pricing tool on any level. So it doesn't matter what employees are working where. If he's not on a job, then he's just not going to be in those metrics at the end.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
Does that answer it? Okay. All right. Then I also threw a glossary tab in here because I know we're dabbling with a lot of terms in here, and I'm aware that some of our home office terms are slightly different than what some of you might think some terms are. So just so everybody's on the same page, I did throw a glossary section in here so you guys can kind of see and understand some of the verbiage that I'm leveraging in this spreadsheet that you'll see like in the notes on some of the tabs, just so everybody's on the same place. And then this part down here, if you scroll a little bit farther, the CTBids sort of KPI section that's in here, this is going to kind of break down every column that's in there and what it's tracking and what its purpose is. Okay, so that's going to be really helpful for you guys if you're not really familiar with statistics and that sort of element of the business. This will help you get a little bit more comfortable with it, and it'll be able to help you leverage it in a sense of like selling that value in the consultation part. All right, so that's pretty much the setup. Then we have a couple of more tabs right here, the green and the blues. Okay, these are probably going to be the most important tabs here. Okay, so this one very simply says invoice template. That's exactly what it is. This is the template that you're going to leverage anytime you need to create a client worksheet. Okay, so you'll come here and you'll right click on it and it'll pop up all of these options. You want to slide up to move or copy. You want to check the box that says create a copy. And then it's essentially, you can put it where you want it to live within the workbook. So I always have you guys put it in between or in front of invoice last. Essentially, you want to select the invoice last. So once I do that, then it'll populate in between these two blue tabs, the client, example client, last client. Then if you just double click on this, you can rename it to whatever you want to rename it to. Okay. Then you can also move these clients around, right? So for example, anything being processed within this workbook in a sense of like your monthly reporting worksheet, the monthly profit summary worksheet, or the monthly metrics worksheet. So these very last three tabs right here, all of these are being basically told to pull any information in between the example client and the invoice last client. Okay, so any client tabs that are sitting in between your ranges. Okay, think of example client as the starting point and the invoice last as your ending point. Okay, anything living in between there is going to be calculated on this monthly reporting summary, monthly profit summary, monthly metric summary. Okay, so if you've started a project, say we started a project in February, we're coming up to the end of February right now. So maybe on Monday you started an auction, you'll finish sorting it and shooting it this week. Maybe it goes live today or tomorrow. So it's going live in February, but it won't close until March. So let's say client number 3 is that client, the client that starts in February but ends in March. We don't want to report that client's information, right? So we only want to report our sales that have been completed and have been invoiced to the client, okay? And when I mean invoice to the client, it means you've submitted the invoice to the client, whether they've paid you or not, we're still expecting you to invoice that sale for that month, okay? If it was invoiced to the client, we want you to essentially report it, whether they've paid you yet or not, okay? Just to make that a little bit clearer. So if client 3 needs to come out of our range, we just click on it and then we can drag it. Okay, so I can move client 3 anywhere on the spreadsheet that I want just by clicking it and dragging it. Okay, so I can move it anywhere I want. So when you come to that end of the month and you need it out of that summary section, essentially, just click on it and drag it behind invoice last. And so the only thing that's going to get calculated is going to be client 1. All right, does that make sense to everybody? Okay, so that's essentially how you're going to create a new client sheet. You're going to right click, copy, move it in front of invoice last. Then you can rename it by double clicking on it, and then you can start using that client template. All right, let's just look at this example client because it's already filled out. So it's going to give you a little bit more of like a clearer picture of how this is going to look when we're done. All right, so essentially you guys again are going to fill in any box that has a neon color in it. Your neon boxes are your input boxes. Okay, if it's grayed out, that means it's an auto-filled box. You don't have to worry about putting anything into it. So you want to input all your clients' information in these top boxes. Over here is going to be like all your invoice info. So you'll put the date. If you guys are giving your invoices like an invoice number, you'll put that there. If you're giving yourself an invoice ID number, that's going to go here. And then you guys want to input your state sales tax. Actually, I should probably change this. This is probably going to be your county sales tax, right? Essentially. So I put this here because some of you guys, depending on what states you're in, you're having to charge different sales taxes for the different like counties that you're going into that have different sales tax. So essentially this is here. It's not on your default page because that might change from client to client, depending on where you guys are at within your state. All right, so you'll input all that information there. It's going to auto-populate the client's info here. It will have pulled all of our information that we already put from the default section here. And then now we can start utilizing the like income coming in from the sales and the outgoing going out to the clients, the charges that we're going to be charging. So for the income part coming in, you want to put the deposit that you took. And then again, here's another box where you're going to select what kind of method it is. So did they pay you by credit card, check, cash, or some other form of payment? If it was a check, if you selected check, then you could then input the check number here and then the date that they paid. Okay. The remaining balance, this is a box that you don't have to put anything in, but you're seeing it greened out right now with a number because at the end of this client, this owner was lucky enough to get some money returned to her, right? So essentially this is green because it's money that's coming back to her. If she ended up owing this money, this client money, then this cell would have ended up turning red and it would have told you the number that you would have had to pay back to the client. So then you would, if it's money going out or money coming in, again, you can select what kind of payment it was, put the check information and the date paid. This is just going to kind of help that accounting part of it. If you are leveraging this spreadsheet and you want to give it to your accountants, I think it's just going to be an easier way for them to start tracking some of the movement that's happening within the projects. And then this part right here is going to be all for your in-person estate sale revenue that you're generating. Okay. So flash sales, private buyer sales, in-person estate sales, pickup day sales, anything like that. Okay. And I just want to get this a little, because I'm finding this might be a little confusing for some people. So we want to start in column G. Okay. So essentially all the way to the far right, you want to put your net sales revenue. So this is going to be the total sale revenue you collected, right? So say we did a mix of cash and credit cards. So if we took $1,000 total, the sale revenue was $1,000 total, then I'm going to put $1,000 here. Then let's just say we took, $270 in sales tax. So I'm not including sales tax in this number. I'm putting the sales tax in its own column here. Then in column D, where it says credit card revenue, including tax. This is just for the credit card revenue you guys took, okay? So if we took $500 in credit cards and $500 in cash, then I want to keep 500 here because column E is where we're selecting our credit card percentage that we're charging our client. Okay, so if I select 4%, then column E is doing the math on column D. All right. So this is where it's getting a little confusing. Some people I'm finding they're putting the full $1,000 amount in here. And I know that kind of makes sense because you want to go left to right. And I'm sorry that it's confusing, but this is really just going to be for that credit card revenue. So you're getting that 4% times that 500 populating into this box right here. Okay. Then here in this column, I thought I fixed it. I might have fixed it on this one. No, I didn't. Dang it. Okay, just kidding. All right, on this one, I'm fixing this where you're going to have an option of both. So you can either select this was all credit card fees, this was all cash, and then the other option, I'm getting rid of the check. Obviously, you guys shouldn't be taking checks for any payments. I'm going to make this one both. All right, so you could essentially mark whether that was just all cash that you took, if it was a mix of both cash and credit card, or if it was just credit card or cash that you took. So you can do that in any one of these columns here. That's what that column is essentially for. Any questions so far on this part, guys? I know it can get a little complicated, but is everybody kind of following and tracking me through this area? Okay. All right, so now we're going to move to the bottom part. You can see there's only one green row here for you to kind of really input any information into. This is going to be for all of you guys that are dabbling with listing some of your furniture pieces like on Facebook Marketplace, right? If you guys had any Facebook online sales or any other kind of online sales, this is where you're just going to input that information. All right. Same concept. If you took a mix of cash and card, then you'll want to put just the credit card revenue here. So you'll get the exact credit card fee that you need to charge moving forward for that one. All of the rest of your online auction boxes are grayed out because I want you guys to put your sales reports in here, okay? Your bidder and your sales reports. So we'll just slide over here and kind of move to this right side a little bit. Does everybody know how to run their sales report and their bidder reports on Fran Connect, or do we need to kind of dabble into that right now too? Okay. If you don't, just shoot me a message or something and we can get on separately and show you guys how to do that. So let me see if I still have a
Sorry,
sales
Cherie,
report up
do
here.
you mean, I run them in CT Seller. I should be running it in Fran Connect. Is that different?
No. You want to run it in Seller app. It's still the Seller app that you guys are gonna
Oh,
run.
okay. Okay, got it. Thanks.
Let me see. Where's Jessica's? Hold on. I'm gonna pull up an owner's sales report that I just had yesterday. Bidder report, but where's your sales report, Jessica? Oh. All right, I don't know why I thought I had these open. What did I do? All right, does anybody want to ask me a question while I wait for this to think?
The spreadsheet you're using has some extra pages that mine doesn't. Where can I find that?
I'm gonna send, because currently this version that you're looking at right now has not been updated into Fran Connect.
Oh, got it.
So I'll resend it to everybody. How do I get out of this? Are we doing this anymore? Yeah, I know you're not responding, so I'm trying to get out of you. Come on. There we go. All right. All right, so. I won't open it. Okay.
We wait. Could Brandon share what he did to promote his sale? Were there any hints on marketing it?
Yeah, Brandon, talk about how you marketed your order house. Well,
Yeah.
listen,
Can you guys hear me okay? I'm driving.
yeah, we can.
Okay. So this one well, first I'll say that I dropped estatesales.net when the price increase happened, and I used estatesales.org for a different sale, and like from what I'm seeing, it really just seems to be like regionally, one is better than the other. And I think in Georgia, I think estatesales.net just has like I get more views out of that. And I always have, because I was using both before the change, but I did the one sale before and I was like, it really wasn't many views at all. So I did sign back up with estatesales.net. And I just ran it normal through .org and normal through .net. I think I maybe increased. I did like the little regional bump that was like $20 a day on .org for 3 days. There was a lot of farm equipment in this thing, so I thought Craigslist would be a good place to list it too, just because of the type of stuff that was in it. And when you do the estatesales.org, it actually gives you the code. Like when you finish publishing it, it gives you the code to put into Craigslist. So I did that. I boosted it on Facebook when we made a little ad, but I think I only put like $50 on it or something. And then the email campaign to to our local area Atlanta group, and that was it. That was it for marketing.
Do you know how many views you had on your sale total? I mean, he did have some Sterling. No, that wasn't in that sale. That was a different sale. That was Carrie had Sterling in hers. How many views did you have on it, Brandon? Do you know? Did you look at
I didn't. Yeah, I didn't get that yet. It was a lot. I do know that. It had 900 click-throughs I saw this morning, so I didn't even do the math on what that's going to charge me on .net, but it's going to be,
Please do the
probably
math.
$100.
Yeah. What would have that costed you? Okay,
But
so
one thing that was interesting about that project though was, when we're talking about being competitive with other companies, is I gave that guy a really big estimate for the clean out. I mean, I knew it was going to be at least 4 dumpsters, and it ended up being 7 30 and 40-yard dumpsters. It was a lot. But he didn't like the price, the total price. And so, but I wanted the job. I knew it would be a great project for us. And so what I did was I actually dropped our price a few $1,000s, and gave him the option of, I said, okay, I'll drop the price, but instead of we use a 35% commission plus 4% for credit card. I said, I'll go to a 50% commission and I'll drop the price by $4,000. And I also asked him to extend the timeline to give me more room to do jobs in between. And so between those two things, I dropped the price $4,000. But being that since the sale did so well, I actually made out better because we did it at 50%. But that's another way to like adjust if people are, not, if they're not happy with the setup fee or clean out fee.
yeah, especially those hoarder houses. I know Kathleen did it on her big hoarder house too, took a 50% and a much reduced setup cost. I'm telling you guys, these hoarder, I know they seem and look very overwhelming when you're first there, but it's once you guys get in there, they are very profitable. I mean, Anne and Jen were lucky enough to be hazed with Sherry Gillette's massive hoarder project when they went and did on-site training. And I don't remember the exact number that sale did for Sherry, but I know it was upwards of like in the 40 grand as well. So hoarder houses, they're deceiving. It's a lot of work. I know sometimes you might be afraid you're going to lose some of your staff on them, but if you can find the right staff that just doesn't care to get into that kind of a quality of a house, like it's worth it to start targeting those kinds of people because the sales are so profitable.
Yeah, and just to be clear, my 50% was for the commission of the sale.
Yeah.
My deposit was on auctions. I'm not charging enough for a deposit, especially on that, and that did create a problem for me because I only did, I think it was like 20% deposit, and I blew that through that in the first like 2 weeks in payroll. So I really kind of initially screwed myself on that,
Yeah.
just from a cash flow perspective. But I mean, it's all going to work out in the end. But that was something I definitely need to be more careful of.
Yeah, absolutely. Brandon, Carly's asking what you charge for the setup and the clean out fee.
That one was 14. We ended up at 14. I initially was at 18, but I ended up at 14,000.
14,000, yeah. Guys, FYI, if you're pricing a hoarder project, they are going to be in the upwards of, if you are doing it on Accelerator, it's probably going to show you a number of upwards of like 20,000, but you do want to be landing somewhere in that like 12 to 20 grand if you're going to be doing it. I can't wait. Snapper, you guys, Brandon had Snapper come up to that hoarder project. So if you guys are planning in advance and you know you're going to have big projects, leverage Snapper. I can't wait to get a hold of these full length videos so you guys can see, but he did something kind of unique and cool with a skid steer. I don't know if any of you guys know what that is. I really didn't because I'm in Arizona and we don't farm out here very much, but he was leveraging that tool to like load up these 7 dumpsters that he did. So it's kind of cool to have Snapper there recording it. He threw a carrying transitions magnet on it, so it's branded, which was even better. It was fun. Anyhow, all right, let's get back to the spreadsheet now that my computer's working. So essentially you guys want to run that bidder report, run that sales report from the seller app, and you guys want to just copy it. So I'm going to just mimic what you would do there here. You want to essentially ignore row 1 on your sales report and bidder report because it's already leveraged in here for you. So you guys want to highlight from row 2. Oh, it is unprotected. Row 2 all the way over to the end of your sales report, and then you want to take it all the way down. All right. To the bottom, and then you would just Control C, so you copy it. Then you come into this spreadsheet, and when it's a blank spreadsheet, you're going to end up putting it right here in this. It'll be a green box for you. So then you come over here, hit that green box, Control P, and paste it in there, okay? So then you have your sales report pasted in here. Stop. And then you want to do the same thing to the bidder report. You want to copy that bidder report, paste it in here so you guys can start getting some of these CTBids metrics. All right, so right here, since we're on the bidder area, this is just going to tell you how many total bidders you had bidding. And then this is going to tell you how many winning bidders you had, okay? Here's the thing. This totally got me mixed up, right? Because I was at first just calculating this column BW that says buyer until you finally randomly see a bidder on the list and then the rest are buyers. There's a couple bidders. I thought that this column was telling me how and who my winning bidders were, but it's not. That's just saying in the system If they've been a buyer in the system, that's what they're classified as. If they've only ever bidded on items and they've never won an item on any auction, then they're still living as a bidder within the system. So this winning bidders has got a formula in it. It's calculating something completely different. So you're getting an actual count of how many winning bidders that you guys ended up having in your sale. And then a lot of these like gray areas up here that you're seeing, a lot of that's going to be the same stuff that you can run from that seller report, that admin report, some of those reports that you're going to get in the seller app. So that's going to be nothing really new in a sense of CTBid metrics information. But what it's doing is it's all feeding into this ST column, which is going to break down some more of your sales metrics within the CTBid sale. It's going to break down your views and engagements on that. You do have 2 green neon boxes that you have to input information in here too. So essentially what I need you to do is input your new bidder count. So when you run your bidder report and you're importing the bidder report into Fran Connect, into your CRM, that's going to tell you once it successfully uploads, it's going to tell you how many successful uploads there were. That number that it spits out is the number of new bidders that you had, bidders that were not already in your system, okay? Once you've done that, then you want to go into your CRM, the contacts, and you want to just get a total count of your bidders and buyers total. Now that you've added that import and all your new bidders, now you have a new number for your total bidder buyer count. That number you want to input here. So when you input those 2 numbers in here, then you're going to get things like what our customer acquisition cost is. And then you're going to get what that customer retention rate is. All right. So based on how many new bidders we had and whatever we charged for that marketing setup or the marketing expenses, that's going to give us our customer acquisition cost. And then knowing how many total count bidders we have now is going to give us that customer retention rate. These are numbers you guys want to be looking at, right? Especially, they kind of go hand in hand. You don't want to be dropping $10 per every new bidder that you're attaining if you're not retaining those bidders. Does that make sense? So we want to watch that number. We want to get that number as low as possible for the acquisition cost if we can. That means we need to get a wider net of how we're promoting and exposing the auction. That's kind of essentially what that means. The wider, the bigger the net, the lower the cost. If we can make those work hand in hand, we're going to be doing something really good. And then that customer retention rate. We don't want to be paying for new bidders, but then not somehow retaining them and keeping them for every auction, right? So let's just like look at Andy Beard as an example. I've looked at his contact count and he's almost at 17,000 bidder buyer contacts in his. And I know for a fact, you guys, he is not leveraging that Atlanta shared buyers group. So that's Andy Beard's contacts that he's essentially just attained all on his own. And any of you that have trained with Andy, you know he's a numbers guy. And so he's tracking his customer acquisition costs. He's tracking that retention rate and he knows how many people are coming back every auction. This is why his average lot values are in the upwards of 80 to, depending on the auction, $120 average value per lot. It's because the name of this game is the more bidders we have bidding against each other on each auction. So that means we need to get all of our bidders coming back to every auction. This is why Joel is very big on having a sale every week on the platform. That way you can become consistent within the market. And we're feeding addicts here, you guys. Addicts. I know it's hard to swallow that pill, but we are. And essentially we're the drug dealer of all the household goods that they want. Okay, so we've got to feed this addiction. The more auctions that we have, the more feeding that addiction we are. They're going to just keep coming back and back and back. And that's essentially what Andy's doing. He's pounding out a lot of sales every week. He's getting people to come to his auction. They can count on being able to buy from him. He's the drug dealer that never runs out of items, right? That's essentially what you guys got to be doing. And so he's got so many bidders bidding against each other. That's what's driving those values up so much. So you want to start paying attention to some of these numbers. It's really going to help you in a sense of like talking about value selling points for your consultations. If you know how much of your sales being shipped out of state, that's a number you want to be sharing within that consultation. I bet you none of your competitors, because you've all secret shopped them by now, right? Right? I bet you none of them are talking about that. And so in a sense of like, why do you want to come to me versus them? Well, this is why. My reach is so much wider than this local competitor, right? So learn and know these numbers, get familiar with them so you can start to leverage them and speak on them, right? How many total views did I have a sale? Again, that's a number you're going to want to be talking about. At the end of the month, this is going to average all of your metrics together. So you're going to have a number that you can speak to at the end of every month saying, this is what my average sales doing. This is what my bid, my view to bid ratio is. This is what the average bidder is spending. This is how many bids an average bidder is posting on my auction. Like these are numbers that I bet you your competitors can't deliver. And if you're speaking to that, I mean, I'm always going to go to somebody that I feel like has got me and if I'm in the right hands. If you're telling me all of this information, I know I'm in the right hands with you versus the competitor who's just dangling a big old fat carrot in front of my face saying, I'm not going to charge you setup. I'm just going to charge you a commission. I'm sorry. That's, they're blinding me. There's something else happening there in the background that's going on. And typically there is. Okay. All right. So any questions on this part of it and how it correlates to this section? No? Okay. That's fine. All right, so once you guys have put your sales report in the spreadsheet, it will auto-populate all of the sales information here for you, okay? Again, we've already selected that credit card percentage, so it's gonna automatically do that math for you. It's pulling your bidder report or your buyer's premium over for you, so you don't have to input any of that. The whole sale is typically credit card, so it's taking off of the actual sale price and the tax price and the buyer's premium. That's why you see this number so much higher for the revenue, because it's taking, you guys are being charged that PayPal fee off of the total cost of the client's, of the bidder's essentially invoice, right? So that means the sale price, the tax price, and the buyer's premium price. All right, so that's all being calculated together here in this column. So you don't have to do anything for your CTBid sales. It's going to do it all for you. Then on the bottom part, we've got the charges to the client, right? So we have two different columns here now. We've got a direct cost column, and then we've got a markup cost column, okay? All of your labor costs, you guys, is going to come into this markup cost column. So you'll see anywhere there's like a labor line, it's already blacked out because I don't want you putting it into your direct cost. Because this labor cost that you put in here, it's a markup cost. It is a inflated cost. It's that cost of your billable hourly rate. It's not your direct labor cost at this point. It's the markup cost. So it's living over here in this markup cost column. Everything else is going to be living here for the most part in this direct cost column. So for Brandon, all his 7 dumpsters, whatever those 7 dumpsters costs are going to come right here. Whatever the dumpster company charged Brandon goes here. Then if Brandon's marking it up, whatever he's deciding to mark it up, that markup cost is going to go to the right. All right. So it's adding up both columns here, but they're doing 2 different things, okay? Essentially, this F column, your direct cost markup column, is feeding into your monthly profit summary tab, okay? And it's feeding into these 3 columns, your supplies, your advertising costs, and any other expenses like trucks, equipment, that sort of stuff, okay? So that's why it's important for it to be the exact direct cost for you. That way, when you get to this page, this sheet, you're getting your true accurate project net revenue and your percentages that are coming out from that project. Okay, if we included the markup costs here, these numbers wouldn't be accurate. All right, so that's essentially what that's doing. All right. Oops, I'm on the wrong one. Okay. So that's how you're going to handle that direct cost versus the markup cost. Is everybody following me on that part of it? Okay. And then the markup cost is just the exact dollar. All right. There's not a percentage here. You're not doing one big fat percentage on all of the expenses, just because owners they're doing that differently. They're handling each kind of markup cost for each thing separately. And so this way you can all just have that full autonomy in how you want to mark it up. All right, so for the most part, everything here is pretty self-explanatory, right? This top part is going to be all the liquidation setup and the cost going into an in-person estate sale, an online auction, okay, that sort of stuff. Then you've got your liquidation revenue that's already being pulled down from the top for you. Over here, you've got a box where you're going to select your commission, all right? And so right now, I'm working on it, but right now, this is just for the whole entire client invoice as a whole. All right. I know some of you are dabbling with a couple of these items we'll do at a different commission rate level versus the rest of the items. Like if you've got big ticket items like vehicles and stuff like that. I'm working on how to get that incorporated where you guys can kind of pick and choose, but I haven't had that opportunity yet. So right now it's for the whole entire invoice as a whole, what that commission rate's going to be. If you guys are playing with a minimum, so if you're saying we're going to do, $10,000 because this was a big hoarder project, or a 50% minimum, whichever is greater, then you'll put that minimum there and it's going to take the greater of each, okay, of either or, right? So if the 10,000 went into effect, then you'll have 10,000 sitting in this commission line. If it's the 50% that went into effect, then you're going to see like what you're seeing right now. It is that 50% mark. So it's going to, if you are playing with the minimum, the commission or minimum, whichever is greater, then you can leverage that right here if you want.
Sheree,
Yes.
sorry to take you backwards on this. I just wanted to look at the direct cost, markup cost. When you scroll down to like the totals at the bottom, how are you pulling that? Is it the direct cost? I mean, is the macro already adding those together to put it into the number on the bottom?
Yeah, so whatever's landing in column G in the gray box, right? So all of these gray box costs from column G, that's what's landing on your client's invoice column. Okay. But all of the F column from direct cost, that's all landing on the monthly summary page.
Right. And then scrolling down to the bottom on what we're paying our commission on, is it adding those two together or
the commission
markup cost? Because what I mean, I'm always confused. Yeah, and you explained it, and I should have just watched the video again. But the markup cost, I was putting the cost plus the markup cost. So I haven't done that. I was thinking I would do that. I actually never did it. I always just put the total in the markup cost. But if you put those two together, the markup and the original cost, are those added together?
Yes.
Down at the bottom?
They are, yes.
On commission. Okay.
Yes,
right.
They are all added together. Not on the commission, but your direct cost column is added to the markup cost column. So right here, this 30,000, that should be everything. Your column here plus this column here.
That's obvious. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so, all right, so that's your direct cost, your markup cost. Everything else is pretty, you've got your clean outs, you've got your relocations, and then you've got your like random miscellaneous stuff, okay? I have also added here for that like markup royalty. You guys should be at least dropping, depending on what royalty cost you're at right now, you should at least be doing this 7 or 8%. Some of you are still on the 7% FDD. At least 8%. I mean, really, you guys should go to 10 because if you include like the tech fee, right? You got your 6 or 7% royalty fee, or sorry, 6 a 5 or 6% royalty fee. You've got the 2% marketing non-brand fund fee, and then you got the tech fee. If you kind of added it all together, it really does kind of at the end of the month when you report land at about 10%, right? So if you want to include that tech fee, you could go as high as 10, but you should land at least 7 or 8% minimum. So you guys are collecting some of that markup costs on the pass-through fees. Okay. Then I also added a credits and discounts. So for those of you that are applying credits, like if you found money in the house, then you can apply that here. If you're applying a discount because something happened, you could apply that there, and it's going to live here on the client invoice looking like that as a credit or a discount. Okay. And then the very bottom is just going to tell you what your gross revenue was, the subtotal for royalty, and your invoiced revenue amount. Okay. So let's just call out the elephant in the room. All right. So let's just call out this royalty number. Yes, it's looking very high. Okay. And that is because for those of you who have not yet reported, and you're going to be reporting for the first time this month, that means it is essentially coming off of everything that landed on your guys' client invoice. Okay. Everything you charged the client plus all of your sale revenue. Okay. We're not charging you royalty on your commission line. That's not being taxed a royalty on. So everything else that lives on this invoice, plus what the actual sale revenue did, is what you guys are being taxed the royalty on. Okay. Does everybody understand that yet who has not yet reported sales?
Does that include sales tax?
No, it does not.
If we're offering a discount, for something on occasion, we're paying on the before discounted amount, I assume?
That's correct. Okay. All right. So everything that you guys have done in column B through G, all right, this is all internal basis for you. Nobody's going to see it but yourself or your accountant will auto-populate for you on the client invoice. So you guys aren't going to have to do any of that. It'll just do it for you automatically. Okay. If you guys forget to mark your credit card, let's just keep that there for a second because I've seen this a couple times. If you didn't select your credit card percentage, and you're gonna ask me, how come my credit card fees didn't pull over? That's gonna be why, because you gotta select this credit card percentage. If you guys are not yet charging the credit card fees, because sometimes in the beginning, I know some of you guys kind of just waive that cost and eat it yourself. If you're not charging the client credit card fees, then you'll want to keep it blank as it is. Okay. So just kind of keep that in mind as you work forward with it. All right, so now once we're done here, if you guys go to Control P to print it, you'll see that it's only going to print out your client invoice. Okay, so you want to go act like you're going to go print it, and then you want to come over here and export it. And you want to export it to a PDF. So once you've exported it to a PDF and you've saved it in your client's file, then that's going to be the file you end up sending to the client for that final invoice. Okay. All right, so that is essentially the client invoice in general and how you want to use that and leverage it. Let's just come in here because we are kind of running short on time now into this monthly reporting tab and some of these other tabs and see how they work. So right now you're looking at it and it's looking like nothing, right? There's nothing there. But again, let me just make sure I have one client that I want to be. If I only had one client in the month of February that I need to report, I want to make sure that I only have one in my start and stop, range area before I run this report. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to hit this button. Wait. Did I open the wrong spreadsheet? Hold on. Sorry, guys. Oh, when I restarted this, it pulled up a different one. Pull up my other one. I have macros on this one, so it didn't like that other one because it didn't, I don't know, it didn't save right or something. All right, let me just come here. Let me copy this. Oops. Spelled that wrong. Oh, I did that on the wrong one. Oh my God, bear with me, guys. I just want to do two so you guys can see what two look like. All right. So I'm gonna get my one in here. So I only have one client invoice in here right now. Then I'm gonna come to this monthly report and I'm gonna hit this and I gotta come to formulas because I've got my sheet automatically populating for me. All right. Hold on. I want you guys to see this happening. All right. All right. Come here and you hit the button and boom, voila, it auto populates everything that you need to report for March 5th for February's sales. Okay. If I bring in the second client that we have to do, so say I have two sales reports or two client invoices that I need to report for the month, then I'll come back over here and I'll click it and it's now populating for both of those sales. So it's switched. All right. Everybody seeing how that kind of worked for me? All right. Now, if I come over here to the monthly profit summary, so this is going to be everything you guys need to report into Fran Connect, right? Essentially. And it's broken up exactly like this. So what you put into the setup cost or the sort and organize cost and Fran Connect would be the 4653.90. You would put 4408 in your estate sale revenue column. You would put 92,061.06 in your online auction sale revenue. You would put 48,234.53 in your commission line. Again, the commission line is not going to be taxed for revenue or for the royalty. We're taking the greater of these two, which is typically going to be your sales revenue. You'll report 14,729.68 in your buyer's premium, your clean out revenue, 6,552 in your clean out revenue, miscellaneous 21,000. The total altogether for this is 197,684. That's going to be what your 8% royalty is getting taxed on. Okay. Is everybody following me on this part and essentially how you're going to just use this tab to report your monthly sales? Okay. Then your monthly profit summary, same thing. You're going to come here, hit this update monthly profit summary tab, and it's going to pull everything over here. So you can see that it didn't give us a direct labor cost percentage because we haven't inputted anything here in the labor cost. So let me come back over here to this client sheet real quick, and I'm going to slide over and cheat. I know we didn't get to this employee section, which I said we might not get to it, but I'll just give you a little peek of what it looks like. Now I can come here and I can see what this number is because this is what, for this sale right now, this is all the labor that went into this was a CTBids auction. I know that the total labor for this project was 14,829.47. So if I put that there, and then I calculate it again, it's going to give me what my direct labor cost percentage was on that project. Let's say we did the same project, but our team wasn't as efficient. And let's just say it was 20,827.47. and I process it again, now you can see the difference of what that labor cost was for the project. But it's giving you client name, the date, you'll get that breakdown of the job revenue. You're going to get the breakdown of the total cost for all the project supplies, advertising, direct labor cost percentage. And then at the very end of this, it's going to give you that net project revenue number. So at the end of paying everybody and everything, obviously we didn't pay the client out of here. Well, we did, because we only took the commission. This is what we earned on this project. So another hoarder project, you guys, that total takeaway revenue was about $28,000 when you really look at it. Her gross project margin percentage was in the 60% range. And then her net, which is really what matters, was 37. Okay.
Quick
So
question.
yeah.
I'm so sorry. Labor cost.
Yes.
Is that, was that the, like, for example, pull from Connect Team the number of hours and multiply by 80? Or is that the amount
No.
that we actually paid out on payroll?
You want to, yeah, it's the actual amount that you put out on payroll. So if you guys are leveraging Connect Teams, thanks to Kathleen who's talking, I've got access to her Connect Teams where you can go in there and you can export your employees like hours for the week, and it'll tell you like per job basis. When I get some free time, you know, on my free time here, I'm going to somehow incorporate that into it. So when you guys, because I know it's really painful when you guys get to this like example client or you get to the employee part and you're like, oh my God, that's so many green boxes, right, Brandon? You're like, cut this down. I don't want to have to input as much as that's in here. I want to somehow figure out how to leverage that exported spreadsheet from Connect Team. So essentially we can eliminate some of these green boxes for you guys. But yeah, essentially right now you want to just put in your employees' labor, total direct labor costs that you ended up paying payroll on for that project per client basis. So you guys should be tracking, if you're in the like working multiple jobs a week phase yet, you definitely need to be tracking, this was client one, this was client two's hours. So when you get to this point of the spreadsheet, your numbers are the most accurate. Some of you in the beginning right now that are just kind of just doing one project a week and it's just one at a time, it's much easier to manage. But when you're leveraging 2 or 3 projects in 1 week and you've got teams that are kind of going and dabbling to different locations within a week, it's going to get to be really tedious and convoluted. You're going to want something like Connect Team to be able to track and manage that much easier for yourself. So that's this tab. And then the final tab is going to be this employee metrics summary tab. So again, same thing, start clicking all these buttons and it's going to update that tab for you. If I calculate the sheet, okay. All right. If I had my fixed expenses in the very first default page, it would have spit out, you know, some information here, but because I haven't, it's not giving me that there yet. But everything else auto-populated over. So if you had multiple sales, which this summary is doing, then you now have your full metrics of CTBids for the whole month that you can speak to. Same with your employee metrics. This one's not correct because there's, I think these are your employees, Spencer. I don't know how that ended up on this spreadsheet. But it should have all Kathleen's employees here and the total metrics of all of her employees moving forward. I don't know why that didn't do that on this. Oh, the example client versus what's in the default section. So this is feeding in from the default section. The example client, that's just what it is. It's example. It's not tied into any of these macros for any of these sheets. So that's why that's not looking right. It will look correctly on your spreadsheet, guys. That I do promise. So essentially you'll have your full employee information here, metrics that you guys can share to your team. If any of you guys have to hop off, feel free to hop off, but I am going to kind of just run through some of this employee part just because I think it is super critical for you guys to at least high level be able to see. So we're looking at Kathleen's big hoarder project last year that she did. This is the example from that. So this is for 3 hoarder houses combined in one. It was 1 client, 3 houses, all hoarded. So you're looking at That's why there's 34,000 views on the sale. That's why there's 516 or 87 bidders. It's because it's 3 or 4 sales kind of all meshed into one. So her total labor hours for this project was, you know, roughly 811. She didn't count all of her project hours. We just kind of winged hers. But essentially, it's going to pull over again all that stuff from your default section. So your employee rate, hour labor, loaded rate, billable rate, it's going to pull all that over for you. These columns are what you guys need to input in here manually. Okay, so this is going to be for Emma Neely. She worked 41.22 hours for the sort and organize and the clean out section. Then she worked another 20.61 hours on photographing and describing. This is set up like this for those owners that are in Connect Team or using whatever scheduling app they're using. That means they're actually scheduling their team for, you're going to come to work Monday and Tuesday to sort and organize and do clean out. You're going to come to work on Wednesday, Thursday, and you're going to do photographing and describing. Okay, so that's why there's 5 different columns here. If you guys aren't doing that, that's fine. Then you just need to decide which column you want to throw all that labor hours into, whether it's the sort and organize, whether it's the clean out or the photograph describe, it doesn't matter. Okay, it's all feeding into the same part of the spreadsheet. But I separated it for those owners who are tracking that separately. Okay, but you should know all of these hours, whether they're in this column, this column, this column, or all just in one, is all feeding into this lots per hour column. All right. So you're all going to look at this number right now and be like, that is nowhere near the 6 per hour you're telling us we need to attain. Okay. I get that. But this is because this is when we tell you that 6 lots an hour number, that's essentially just based off of the online auction labor hours. Okay. I kind of view it differently. Typically, it's the same teams working these projects. They're the same people doing the sort and organize that are doing the photographing and the describing. I'm just looking at this as the whole project together because it kind of is all inclusive in one. And so that's why this number is looking very low, right? If we were to take all of these columns, like this column, and add it to this column, and we just had everything in here, we'll just play with this real quick. All right, and then I recalculate my sheet. You'll see how it changed that number, right? So again, if you had everything living in that one column, it's going to adjust that number for what it is. But in all reality, like everything is kind of related to the whole project as a whole. So, you know, maybe make this new goal 2 or 3 if you're leveraging as the whole thing, because it's taking it from the whole thing. All right, so that's just that column. I just want to call that out because I know when some people look at it, they're like, what? We're nowhere on track. But just know that's why you're not on track, is because I'm taking it from all the total labor from that project. All right, so then this back part is going to essentially show you what your employees are doing in a sense of who's costing you money versus who's making you money. Okay, at the end of the day, that's just what we got to look at as an owner, is who's making us money and who's going to be like our star key players, who's going to be the trainers of the pack versus who's going to be the employees that are just dead weight, that aren't stepping up, that even after feedback are just, it's just not clicking, they're not getting it. You got to start looking at this because those are the people, you guys, that you got to keep to the relocation side of the business, right? Keep them on the reload side. If you want to just keep them for straight clean outs, they are not going to be your key players for the liquidation part of the business. Okay. Again, the liquidation side is you got to have hustlers and grinders, people that can move and shake for you. If they are not hustling and grinding and moving and shaking, they do not belong on your liquidation team. Unless you just don't care about numbers and you don't want to be like a top producer and you don't want to, you know, be super profitable. All right. If none of that matters to you, then it doesn't matter. But if all of those other things matter to you and those are things that you are trying to aspire to, then you definitely want to be making sure you've got hustlers and grinders on that liquidation side of the business. Okay. So this is going to break down all of your employee initials, because you guys should have a SKU marker in your SKU number, an employee marker in the SKU number that identifies which employee listed which item. Okay. If you guys do that, then this spreadsheet will work for you. So I have it set up that you guys should do, I'll just backtrack here for a minute. Right here is like an example. So CT, that's going to be your client initials. CM, that's going to be your employee initials. LR, that's going to be the area in the house that it lives. And then you're going to have the SKU number. So whatever the item is in that room essentially is going to be the final number. So when you're on pickup day and you guys are going to look for these SKU numbers in the houses, you really only have to look at those last 4 or 5 numbers to see where to go and what item in the room to pick. The first 4 numbers are going to be for those that are doing multiple client auctions, identify what item belongs to what client, and then that second area is going to be identifying what employee actually did and created the listing. Okay, so once you do that, this spreadsheet's going to track all your individual employees and all their activity. Okay, so you guys can absolutely run this report in Seller Report. It'll tell you, this is what the Seller app will tell you. It'll tell you all of your employees that produced listings on that auction, and it's going to tell you what their individual average lot value is per individual employee. Okay, that's all it's going to give you. That's not enough. That's one dimensional, and we cannot be running this business singularly dimensional. Okay, we've got to look at all the pieces, all of it. It's not just that number we got to look at. So it's going to tell you that average lot value. That's great. It's going to tell you what their average lot per hour is. And then it's going to tell you what their individual sales revenue was that they generated. So that's based off of whatever lots they listed and the revenue that they pulled in. Okay. Column DH is pulling the setup cost from the beginning part of the spreadsheet. So whatever we charged the client labor for the setup cost, and it's pulling in the clean out labor cost. So whatever we charge for clean out and whatever we charge for that setup cost, that's pulling that number right here. Okay. And so depending on how many hours each employee worked on the project, that contribution percentage, that's deciding how much of the total 28,000 we took kind of gets allocated per individual employee. And then we have all of our employee rates in here. This is why we have to have the employee rates in here, because everybody is making different hourly wages. We need to know that exact hourly wage compared to the cost that we charged for the setup and the clean out part of the job, right? Once you have these two in here, then column DJ is going to be an interactive column with you. Okay, guys? If you charged appropriately, like right now, we charged enough for the setup and the clean out labor, DJ is going to spit out a green number, which means we're in the clear, we're good to go, everything's good. If you did not charge enough in your setup cost or the clean out cost, then this DJ becomes very interactive for you, and it turns all of your numbers red that you lost money on. Okay, so we're seeing very early on if we priced appropriately or if we didn't. Okay, so if it's turning red, then we got to really be thinking about that setup cost. Whatever we charged for that setup cost probably wasn't enough, or we didn't manage the team and their expectation of execution well enough. It can only be one or the other. All right, so we got to figure out which one it is and fix it. This is why it's super critical for you guys to do this immediately after these projects are done. So before you start the next project and we get even farther into creating bad habits, we can give that feedback to the staff of what the sale prior had did, okay, or had done. DK and DL is essentially based off, again, whatever listings that they generated, whatever costs that they brought to the table from that. Okay, so the commission it's taking, 50% or 40%, 35, wherever you guys are doing, of whatever the liquidation revenue was they brought in. Same concept with that buyer's premium. DM is just giving you that total gross revenue number. DN, O, and P, those are all just percentages, because you guys need to have percentages from what I'm hearing, and profit soup. You can't just have a number. You need to have a percentage to see if everything's being tracked accordingly. DQ is going to give you your total labor cost all aboard. And then it'll give you each individual employee's labor percentage broken down. Okay, so be tracking that. Again, this is another box that's going to be interactive with you. If your labor cost is over 30%, I know we tell you want to shoot between 25 and 33, but my cutoff for you guys is really going to be 30%, to be honest. Like, it really should be lower than that. But in here, for this spreadsheet purposes, if it is at 30% or higher, this box goes from green to red. Again, it's really in your face. You can't run and hide from it. If again, it's over 30%, this column right here lights up again. It's going to be red and it's going to say, warning, labor cost exceeds 30%. Get a grip on it, essentially, is what I'm telling you. You got to get a grip on it. And so that means coming here and looking at this, who do I need to have feedback to? It's going to tell you. Anybody here that is really costing you money, all of these numbers are going to, whoever's costing you money on your team, their numbers are going to end up being red versus green. Any number you see red on here that it allocates to an employee, you better be having conversations with that employee. Okay. Like, otherwise you're just gonna be dead in the water and you're just gonna be spinning in circles. Okay. If you're not giving that feedback, and if you guys are not letting them know some numbers and information, you are not doing your business due service. Okay. I'm just telling you, that is going to be a game changer for you and your staff when you start sharing numbers and giving them some insight on what the sale did and how they can do better. All right. So that is the extent of this spreadsheet, everybody. I know it's big and it seems very overwhelming, but I promise, play with it. The more you play with it, it'll get a lot easier to read and understand, and you'll have more information quickly at your fingertips. So you can start pivoting a whole lot sooner with your staff in a sense of training, giving them feedback, bringing them, you know, a little bit 1% better every day, guys, right? 1% better. If that's all we're striving for, at least that's this spreadsheet's going to help you guys accomplish that.
Cherie,
Yes.
I have a really newbie question.
Give it to me, Jennifer.
Sorry, I don't understand. Sorry, my phone's acting weird. So how do you get this information? Like, this is the invoice, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
How do you get this invoice into QuickBooks? Did I miss that?
This is not connected to QuickBooks at all.
Right, but you want this into QuickBooks, this information.
You'll just be inputting QuickBooks as it comes, right? So like, as your PayPal deposits get deposited in there, you're just going to go in there and adjust that, you know, make sure you're identifying it, categorizing it in the correct column and area. You're going into QuickBooks, you've accepted the deposit from the client. You've said this deposit goes to this client. So they're not connected at all by any means. I don't even know how to really properly answer that question for you, Jennifer. What you're doing in QuickBooks is completely different than what you're going to end up doing here.
But don't you want to keep track of your expenses in QuickBooks and what you're billing out? So would you not create an invoice in QuickBooks?
You can create an invoice in QuickBooks. You absolutely can. Jennifer, you do not have to use this spreadsheet by no means, okay? So if it's easier for you to leverage QuickBooks for the invoicing part, so it's all there for your accountant to have, that's fine. Do it. Just make sure your accountant is giving you these metrics and KPIs. QuickBooks doesn't output these kinds of metrics.
Right.
It's not outputting any metrics on your employees. It's not outputting any metrics on your CTBid sale. The seller app's not outputting these kinds of in-depth metrics. So this spreadsheet is really just for that. QuickBooks also does not have a very easy way of telling you how to report your sales or report your monthly sales reports, right? And so that's what this leverage is. I get that it's a two-part system where I'm essentially asking you to do it twice. I get that.
So what I could do is use this information on this invoice and just manually put it in this same information, manually put it into the invoice in QuickBooks, and then send the invoice through QuickBooks.
Yeah, if you want to do that. And I know it sucks because everything is like, nothing speaks to each other. I get it. It's very annoying and overwhelming where you're having to do things 3 and 4 and 5 different times in different places. I completely get that. But yeah, right now there is no easy way to just say that, except you're going to have to do it twice if that's the way you're going to do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
Sorry.
understand now.
Not the
Okay,
best.
but I like this spreadsheet a lot, so I can see using this to figure out, you know, where your
Yeah.
failures and wins are. But
Yeah.
I think it needs to go into QuickBooks in order to, you know, pay your taxes and do stuff like that.
Yeah. But essentially, if you're not, some owners are not managing their QuickBooks. They're giving it to their accountants and they're having their accountants manage all that. So it's kind of what I was talking about in the beginning. Like you could essentially just give this Excel workbook to the accountant and say, here's everything that was related to the project. So I am kind of trying to get this a little bit more geared as a tool for accountants, for you guys, the ones that are leveraging accountants to just manage all of the bookkeeping part of the business for them.
Okay.
Okay.
I was going to do the
Sure.
account myself, but I could see how it might get overwhelming really fast.
As a single unit owner, yes, Jennifer, it will get very overwhelming. It's too many pieces for you to be managing all at one time.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sheree, this spreadsheet actually really confused my bookkeepers, and not that this is confusing. I don't mean it like that. It's just that the
It's not what they're-
information here, yeah, the information here is actually for a completely different purpose than what we have for QuickBooks. So I don't actually, in my opinion, I don't think it has to be hooked up with QuickBooks, because this is, you know, having some of these things, numbers separated out and including the gross, like the gross is actually a completely useless number when it comes to QuickBooks. Like we really don't even need that number, nor do we, it just confuses our numbers people. So, because it's, the gross is just a carrying transitions thing. It's not even an actual gross. You know what I'm saying? So it's not the true top line that you're looking at in your P&L. Anyway, I mean, it is, but the numbers are going to be different. And I think I've just come to terms with that. So if you want to talk to me later and straighten me out, you're welcome to do that. But
No, I won't do that. You definitely, I won't straighten you out there, Kathleen. But yeah, they're all completely different systems. And I know that's complicated and it's not what everybody wants to hear, because you guys are already having to transpose in so many different places. And I hear that is a pain point for all of you. And I promise I'm on a single path myself to try to eliminate some of these transposing processes that you guys have to do. But yeah. All right, guys, I've definitely kept you way longer and I'm probably late for a meeting, but that's typical. Sorry about that. I was having a little bit of complications and then we kind of let Brandon talk about some stuff. So we did kind of go over a little bit, but I hope it was all good, useful information. I'll send the recording of this out for everybody to look at, and then I'll resend this workbook to everybody that has those YouTube training links in there as well, so you guys can watch those videos. Thanks, everybody. Happy
Thank
Thursday.
you.
Have a good afternoon, guys. Bye.
Bye.